Well, he is the pride of the Missouri Tigers, who are continuing to play some pretty darn good football out there in Columbia. He is now a star on the Fox Business Network. He is joining us in Kansas City on KCMO. Charlie Gasparino, after yesterday, Jerome Powell announced the Fed will cut interest rates by 1/4 point, the lowest in 3 years. Charlie, good morning. Is this the right move by Powell and the Fed?
You know, it's a hotly debated subject here on Wall Street, and I can argue it both ways. There are people who said he's waited too long, the economy's slowing, and he's now playing catch up to a certain extent. There's others that say, listen, we're still above the inflation target of 3%, and we're kind of in a tough spot right now, so he should just probably hold. Those are the two scenarios. I'm not quite sure where I come down, to be honest with you. The one thing that kind of is a little concerning, and this has got to be concerning if you're a Trump supporter, is that we are having inflation is still sticky at where it is now, and we should point out that while it doesn't sound like a lot, 2.5, 2.8, 3%, this is on top of the price increases that occurred under Biden. So remember, prices are still pretty elevated, right? We still have a real affordability problem when it comes to the inflation gauges that we monitor, CPI, PPI. And on top of that, you do have companies that are cutting jobs. I mean, that's called stagflation. And if it manifests in a major way, I can't tell you if it will or not. But it's kind of what Powell said yesterday. That's why he's, what did he say? He was whistling in the dark or something like that. He's in a fog or something.
Yeah.
Some metaphor that I can't remember. But it was, that's kind of where we are. It's Trump is so befuddling on the economy. It's not funny. I mean, he cuts all these deals with these guys. People, all these countries obviously want to come to the table. But he did impose tariffs. And kind of on countries that you probably shouldn't have, right? And it clearly added to the economic headwinds that he would have faced anyway. And it prevented the sort of positive stuff that would have come out of his tax cuts and deregulation. So,
let me ask you, Charlie. I'm not here as like the diehard tariff guy, but I think we can all admit the tariffs have not had the doom and gloom effect that the worst people expected, or do you think it just is not yet?
Well, he backed off the bad part, right? I mean, people keep saying, "Oh, you're wrong about tariffs. It didn't have the doom." I mean, I hear this on Fox a lot, and what they leave out is that the Liberation Day levels that the markets freaked out about are gone.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. So he scaled that back radically.
Yeah.
There's still tariffs, but so it's kind of a stupid false argument that these folks are making. And I hear it all the time. Oh, well, Wall Street's wrong again. No, Wall Street wasn't wrong. Wall Street forced Trump to scale back on his tariffs because people were afraid that the Japanese and the Chinese or whoever wouldn't buy our debt amid this wicked, this stuff that was like off the charts, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where we are now. We're it's a less hot tariff war than it was, a lot less. There are still costs involved in this stuff. And that's where things get crazy. And, because we've had an economy that had no tariffs. Now, I mean, I'm not saying, we need zero tariffs on all these countries that take advantage of it. I'm not saying we shouldn't cut good trade deals. But if you're going to do what he did, you're going to have some economic dislocation. And particularly when a lot of these countries are not at war with us. I mean, if you think about one country that we really need to tariff and to craft, strong economic sort of national safeguards against, it would be China. And he went with buckshot and just sprayed the tariffs all over the place when he should have used a silencer into the head of this one.
Yeah,
excuse me for the horrible metaphors there. I'm not advocating killing anybody, just so you know, but you get what I mean.
I totally get it. Charlie Gasparino, Fox Business is here on KCMO. So what about, the markets are still on just absolute fire right now, but you still have struggles on Main Street, which is how we started the conversation with inflation. So what is the balance for Trump, for this administration going into a midterm year? The government's still shut down. How do we mold this all together and try to figure out what it means for the months and really next year into 2026 when the president and his party is going to be trying to hang on to power?
Well, I think the Main Street economy is much more important for the midterms. And you could listen, the markets didn't exactly implode under Biden, right? They were going up. They were people were talking about, markets are up. Every time I went out to dinner with a bunch of Biden, look at the markets, he's a great president, So I remember, and he still lost. Kamala Harris lost, but it was an extension of him. So remember, there's two economies here. Wall Street is clearly pricing in wicked amounts of efficiencies and productivity gains. And yes, less layoffs, because that makes companies allegedly more efficient, coming from AI. I mean, now, whether that's, Wall Street is known to overshoot the marks on these things. That's why you have bubbles, right? So we don't know if this is a bubble or this, reflects real stuff. But that's clearly what's going on here on the Wall Street side. Now, on the Main Street side is where tariffs really do impact. If you talk to people that run small businesses and have to supply stuff from overseas, this does have an issue. And inflation is a Main Street thing. If it's at 3% on top of already elevated prices, that's not a good look. Mm-hmm. So I would just say that, the jury's out now. Listen, elections are won on a lot of things. The Democratic Party is, absolutely a sort of psycho ward at this point, with Mondami winning in New York, or probably winning in New York. About, he's like a tiny step away from being a commie, full-fledged. AOC shrieking and screaming. Another one, these are the leaders of the Democratic Party that could drag down the ticket. It'll be interesting to see what happens in Virginia, but particularly New Jersey. New Jersey, Nikki Sherrill is the Democratic Party candidate. She's running against Jack Ciattarelli, who's he's a businessman. He's kind of a Trumpy businessman, and it's neck and neck right now. That was the race. Everybody said that the Nikki Sherrill model of a moderate Democrat that's kind of cool, and she was a fighter pilot, a former, Navy helicopter flyer, and she went to the Naval Academy. She's somewhat moderate. She still can't seal the deal in a blue state. Same with Spanberger in Virginia, although I think she's doing a little better than Nikki Sherrill against Winsome Spears. Is that her name?
Yep.
The woman she's running against. But especially Nikki Sherrill was like the prototype that could win in the future. And, she's being dragged down because she has to literally defend trans men competing in women's sports over trans issues. She's got to, defend DEI.
Yeah.
And some of the stupid excesses of the Democratic left, which sort of captivates the party, even at its center.
So are you going to come back to the Show Me State if Mamdani wins in New York City next week? You're welcome back in Columbia or Missouri anytime there, Charlie, as a Mizzou grad.
Do you guys have a state income tax? I can't remember.
We do. We do have a state income tax. Yeah.
It's not like us.
No. It's around, I think it's around 4 and change.
Right. So, listen, I recently bought a condo in Connecticut. And I did that because I was like, okay, I can spend $1 million on NVIDIA stock, or I can buy a condo in Connecticut, which I know will go up if Mondami gets elected, and I think he will. So that shows you where my head's at, because Connecticut is less as blue as it is. It's not this thing. And I think, I'm like, and by the way, it's funny because there was a story, I think it was either in the Journal or the New York Post yesterday, which I made sure I emailed my wife, that said how housing prices in Connecticut are set to go through the roof because of Mondami.
It's crazy. It is just crazy.
We are at peak insanity, and it is so nuts that Cuomo and Sliwa couldn't do some sort of a cut of deal. I actually told Curtis, and I've known Curtis forever. Curtis Sliwa, Guardian Angels founder. He's a friend of mine. I like him. I said, why don't you? You're not going to win, right? So why don't you go to Cuomo and say, okay, Andrew, I don't like you. There's a lot of reasons not to like you. But, for the sake of the city, because Andrew Cuomo has got very moderate instincts. He did get into the left a lot. But, no, Andrew, here are 5 things I want. If you do this, let's merge together. Let's do a joint ticket. Appoint me, deputy mayor for public safety. I get to do my radio show on the side. And I said, and if he backdoors you, Curtis, why don't you just tell him, why don't you just attack him? I mean, you look like a hero either way. If you look like a hero bringing together the city during the election, if he backdoors you while he's mayor, you can go on the radio and say it every day, and you set yourself up in another 4 years. And he was he kind of hung up on me. And I still think, there's a degree of narcissism in him that he didn't do that.
Yeah.
And, it was the easiest solution here.
Mm-hmm. It was.
And it's now we're on the verge of electing a lunatic. And an imbecile, and just a guy that it's funny. He's so articulate. He is articulate, but when you cut through his BS, he doesn't say anything, and all his policies are stupid. And he went to some liberal arts school, Bowdoin or something like that. Mm-hmm. Took African studies, and now he's telling me how to change the economy. Give me a break.
It's a joke. Well, hey, you're always welcome back in this part of the world. Charlie Gasparino, Fox Business. Good stuff, my man. We appreciate the time as always.
All right, talk soon.
All right, Charlie Gasparino on KCMO 95.7 FM. Always great to have him back on the show. Fed cutting the interest rate by 0.25 points. We'll see how it plays out.